Hello, welcome to Theology Thursday, and we're going to be talking about the Ten Commandments and really what does it mean. What's the big deal? What's it mean? Got to break it on down. Try to figure out what does it mean for life. If you're stuck in a rut, if you're struggling with something, you just can't seem to get your life going, or you're just, you're living life and you're trying to do it the way that the Lord wants you to live your life, and the Ten Commandments are something that would be a very good thing to look at. So let me just say that I've tried to post these videos onto my YouTube channel too. So I'll try to get that a little more up to date and see what we can rename it, something easy to find, because John Black apparently is not the most original name there is. But you can look it up on YouTube, and if you do go to YouTube and you happen to find one of these, you can like the video, and then you hit the subscribe button, and then you can hit the little bell, and you get this notification whenever I post something new. And I'd love to not just be my face here on the camera doing this alone. It'd be good to have some other people to interact with, and so we're looking at doing some things like that. We'd like to be able to upgrade our video editing technology somewhat so that we can do more maybe on the street type things, but and then have other people come in, and we can have people come in live on this if people are willing to do that kind of thing, and it can be fun. So anyway, we're going to talk about the Ten Commandments, and we're going to really, for the next few times, is my idea to break down the Ten Commandments, and what all are they really talking about? What do they mean? How did Jesus use the idea of the Ten Commandments and for somebody's life? And but before we start to go breaking them down into individual commandments, and this can sound real boring, so don't get lost in the weeds here, because one of the things that you'll see is that they're very useful rules for life. How are you supposed to orient your life? And we have a creator who created everything, and so the way the creator created everything is so that things function according to particular rules. You have gravity is a law, the law of gravity. Typically, you throw something up and it comes back down. And there's some force that scientists still can't quite figure out what gravity is and how it works. And but it's a law, and things work according to the way they were created, and we learn more and more about these things, these processes. Well, there's also a creator, the moral creator of the universe. So if God is a moral God, if he is the author of morality, he's the author of how things should work, then to know, well, what's the mind of God really? Like, how has God created man in the beginning? How were we created in order for us to live in harmony with one another and with the universe, so that we, I don't mean to sound too new age, but yeah, I mean, how do we live at peace? So rather than having all this chaos, our lives are like, I just like to think about the Clark Griswold, the Christmas Vacation, where he's beginning to put up the Christmas decorations, and he hands the big ball of lights to Rusty. He says, here, Russ, just undo. And you had this unimaginably large ball of Christmas lights, and where do you begin? And a lot of times our lives can be like that, or people whose lives are like that. But I don't care who you are, your life is a little like that. It may not be this big, huge, ginormous ball of Christmas lights that are tangled up and need to be, impossibly unraveled. But all our lives are somewhat jangled and tangled and need to be unraveled like the giant ball of Christmas lights. But where do you begin? And so you begin just, here's where it starts. And so what do you do here? Where's my first step? Where's the first thing I do? So it's looking at the Ten Commandments just as an idea of how are we to live our lives. What was God's intended purpose for the Ten Commandments? And one of the things that you see as you look at them was they were not given, originally given to Israel after he brought them out of slavery, out of Egypt, and on Mount Sinai with Moses on the the two tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant of the law. And but he doesn't give it to them while they're in slavery and say, hey, tell you what, I give you these list of rules, and if you do pretty good, or you at least make a fairly good enough effort at it, and I'll pull you out of slavery. And he doesn't do that. He saves them, and then they get the Ten Commandments. And so you could say, wow, the way we look at the Ten Commandments, sometimes it's like, well, you saved them out of one type of slavery and put them in another kind of slavery. Why didn't you just free them and allow them to do whatever it was they wanted to do? And the reason was he truly wanted to free them. He wasn't just going to free the Israelites from physical slavery. And that's 400 years of slavery. We're talking about generational slavery. And then the first generation that comes out, and we're going through the book of Numbers in our church services now. And that first generation has all sorts of problems, and they won't even go into the promised land because they see themselves as grasshoppers and the people in the land as giants. And even though God has said, I'll be before you, I'll be with you, I'll be behind you, and they've seen the great things God has done, they still couldn't see themselves as warriors. They couldn't see themselves, they could see themselves as people who need to be saved. They could see themselves as people who deserve to be saved. If you just read Exodus and Numbers, and you'll see ourselves, in the story a lot. If you think about slavery, and metaphorically too, not that it was a metaphor, I completely believe the stories are true and historical in the Bible, but they are given, and these things did happen, the New Testament tells us, to give us life lessons, to give us things to know about the church. So God gives 10 Commandments. And, it starts off with the prelude, hello Amy, which is, I am the Lord your God who delivered you out of the house of slavery, out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And so there's so much you could talk about with the Ten Commandments. It's a type of treaty that was known back then. This is where he states who he is and what he's done, and so he's saying, therefore I am your king. I am this particular case. He's saying, I am your Lord, I am your guide, and therefore you'll have no gods before me. I'm to be your only guide. So one of the first things to do with the Ten Commandments is like, okay, what are the 10 Commandments? Let's number them. Now, Roman Catholics number, in the Bible, we're told there are 10, but where exactly does one end and one begin? It's interesting how there's some disagreement on that. But typically the Protestant understanding of the numbering of the 10 Commandments are as I will give. So, if you just think about it, how many can you name? I don't want you to have to try to list them on the screen or anything, and some of you may be able to name most, but it probably would not be a foolish bet, if it were wise to ever bet, to say, hey, let me pick how many people on the street at random, and at most, how many do you think somebody could name? And which ones would they be able to name? Like which of the 10 Commandments, and maybe you could type this little thing in there if you feel like typing, if you're not driving. And why? Surely I'm not driving. Name one of the 10 Commandments. I'll wait. Wish I had my drink with me. I have my reading glasses. Somebody to name a 10 Commandment. Music. People are signing off. All right, I have to do it myself. I will just assume that you're unable to type into your phone at this particular point. So one I think that people would name would be stealing. Thou shalt not steal. And so that's one. And then I think there's another one about lying. And then maybe somebody gets two. And then somebody else could probably name one about what? Did I lose you? I just said name a 10 Commandments. Name one of the 10 Commandments. That's all I said. And we've already done stealing and lying, basically. So what would be another of the 10 Commandments that somebody would know on the street? Let's see. Lie. I'm not lying. We already mentioned lying. You should not kill. There you go. There's one. Somebody just popped it up there. Thank you, Amy. And Amy battling it out here. So thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery. And so does that mean you shouldn't kill somebody because they committed adultery? Especially if it was on you. All right, better stop this. So Oh, okay. Adultery, killing, lying, stealing, forgetting the Sabbath day. There we go. We're already up to 5. That's half of them already. And then there's, what we've named 5 of the commandments. Thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not. Thou shalt remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, and thou shalt not bear false testimony against thy neighbor. You shall know the gods before me. There you go. That's 6. There's 4 more. Covet. Thou shalt not covet. That's 7. Which ones are we missing? We're missing number 3 and 5. So, and here's how I remember them. Other than they're only 10, so you can kind of memorize them. The first one has been named already, and thou shalt have no other guides before me. So it's like you have only one guide. And the second one is you shall not set up an idol to bow down to it and worship it. So they're kind of the same. So there's only one guide, but look, very good. First 4 are about God, and the last 6 are about your first 4 are your relationship to God, and the last 6 are about your relationship to your neighbor. And so those are good to remember. So you shall have no other gods before me, just one God. Second, you don't set up an idol, so some image of God, and then worship it. And there's reasons for that. And the third one is it looks like the letter W, so that's how I remember that. And so it's like a word commandment. So thou shalt not. It's some kind of speech thing. So you shall not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, in hebel, in vanity. And so a lot of times we talk about that. Well, let me just keep going. So that's the third one. So it's like a W. And then the fourth one is, oh, look, I only have 4 fingers. No, you're forgetting that you do have a thumb. Okay, so the fourth one is you need to remember you have a thumb. So remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. These are kind of silly, but do what you can with yours. And then, right, there you go. 5. So bear false witness. That is, thou shalt not bear false witness. And that's number 9. We'll get to that one. And then number 5 is, the way I remember that one is it's like this all whack. If you don't honor your parents, you get a spanking. Titus is a stretch. Which one's a stretch? The W one that looks like a W? Or the 4? Oh, the one with remember you have a finger? Well, tell him to come up with a better one, and I'll switch to it. So then, where was I? 5, you get a spanking if you do not honor your mother and your father. So that's how you remember the 5th one. And then 6, the way I remember the 6th one is, that's right, taking the name of the Lord thy God in vain. That's the 3rd one, the W one. And then 4 is remember something that I have a thumb. So, remember Sabbath day to keep holy. 5, honor your mother and your father. 6, I remember that one was a 6-shooter, like in a gun. And so, you could say like 6 here, it's thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not kill unjustly. And then 7, a couple ways to remember this. Funny. Thou shalt not commit adultery. It's like there's only a husband and wife in a marriage. It should only be 2, or the other way. Kind of has the Bobbitt thing going on where it's like, don't commit adultery, or, snip should be what happens. So, you only share that with certain people. But 7 is thou shalt not commit adultery. 8 is like, I remember pieces of 8, which are what the pirates would always steal and things. So thou shalt not steal. I like the fact that you know what a mnemonic is, even if perhaps, is that how you spell it? And then 7, to commit adultery. 8 is the pirates, thou shalt not steal. And then 9 is, we're back to Ty's favorite thing, which is, look, Ty, the thing is, I don't have a thumb. I don't even have a thumb. Well, maybe I'm lying about that. So, yeah, thou shalt not bear false testimony against your neighbor. And then 10 is, that's the coveting one. I want everything. I want it all. And it really has to do with not just that, but a lusting after something somebody else has. So it's not like, hey, I really like those shoes, I need to get me a pair of shoes like that. But why does she have those shoes? I can't believe that. I should have those shoes, not her. Or, he won that award, I should have won that award. Or that's my donkey. I really, if you go more biblical with it and stuff. So That's the 10 commandments. They're not that hard to memorize, and it is interesting if you can name the 10 commandments. And oh my goodness, if you can possibly name them in order, you're ahead of the class as far as knowing anything about the Old Testament law. So, one, thou shalt have no gods before me. Two, no idols. Thou shalt not make graven image, bow down to worship them. Three, it's like a W, the word thing. Thou shalt not speak. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Four, the one that Ty loves so much is, oh no, what happened? Oh, I forgot. I have a thumb. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. Five, honor your mother and your father, so that you may live long in the land the Lord thy God has given you. Six, it's like bullets in a gun. Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not kill unjustly. Seven, thou shalt not commit adultery. 8, pieces of 8, thou shalt not steal. 9, there we are with this whole, I don't even have a thumb. Yes, you do. You're lying about it. Thou shalt not bear false testimony against thy neighbor. And 10, I want everything, so thou shalt not covet. So that's it. That's the 10 commandments. So what we'll look at some next time are, just what do some of those mean more? And the one that comes to my mind that I think we, just off the top of my head, one is the the taking the name of the Lord thy God in vain. The fourth one, which also looks like 2 V's, so it could be vanity there. But it really doesn't just mean using God's word, God's name as a cuss word. It's more than that. Surely we shouldn't go around using, Jesus Christ as a cuss word or God and things like that. This bad habits and any kind of, we turn it into a vulgarity, and that's terrible. So we shouldn't be doing that. But also, it's claiming things for God that God didn't say. Saying God said something, he didn't say that. I just know there's a line in a movie, Cold Mountain, where the guy is talking to a pastor, and he says, "What do you think about the war?" We're talking about Civil War, and he says, "I imagine God is wearied from being called down on both sides of an argument. That God is wearied of being called down on both sides of an argument." So both sides of Civil War are saying God's on our side, and so doing that is taking the Lord's name in vain. So we have to be careful when we say, certain God says this, God says that, or you shouldn't do this. The Bible says this, or just speaking things on behalf of God that God doesn't condone or God doesn't say. So we need to be careful about those things. So Sarah wants all the Doritos. Yeah, there's a different problem there probably. So that could lead to stealing. Don't go stealing Doritos. So if you have the means to purchase these Doritos, then then I guess I could say go for it. It's an unrealistic goal for one thing, so you gotta be careful of that. But yeah, if you see Amy has Doritos on her desk, and then you're like angry at her because she has Doritos and you don't, then that's a problem, and then you end up fighting over it, and somebody's dead on the floor, and you're at the DA's office. So don't do anything about Doritos now because they have testimony against you. And maybe you're just hungry. Somebody go buy that girl some Doritos. So as we're trying to get our lives untangled, and this is how I'll wrap it up here. If you have a problem with the Doritos, or you have a problem with stealing, coveting things, being content with what we have is a very difficult thing to do. So just being a place to start is just to say, gosh, there's a line in that song. It's not having what you want, it's wanting what you have. I think that's the thing. So, trying to learn to be content with where you are, to not lie, cheat, steal, disobey God, to have other God. Don't let the Doritos be your God, Sarah. So that could be a problem. I would do anything to get them. So that's a big issue. So I'm trying contentment with where you are and what you have, and maybe the place you are right now is not something that is it is not what you want. You want better, or you want out, or you want something different. Well, then work toward that, but make sure where you are now, you're being the best you can, you're doing the best you can, you're being a blessing as best you can, you're enduring as best you can, and you are doing things that are necessary to try to better your condition, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So that's what we're going to be looking at some, is how to untangle our lives somewhat using the idea of the 10 Commandments, trying to speak truth just trying to always tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Being able to just go throughout your day to day and make it your goal not to tell one falsehood, not to be lying on somebody, and not to be lying about anything. Now, it doesn't mean you have to tell them, oh, that makes you look fat. No, you don't have to say that. You can find true things to say, or sometimes keep your mouth shut. So that's a good way to be. Just begin speaking the truth. And when you do speak truth, the Bible says speak it in love. And also, I'm trying to work on, as you see things you wish you had, say, one, how can I be content and thankful for what I do have? And then also, what things could I do to attempt to better myself and my situation? And particularly, how can doing that affect others in a positive way around me? How does what I do positively affect other people? Because maybe I want something better, but to do so, I have to hurt other people. Then no, that's not good. How do I remember number 4? That's the one that Ty doesn't like. So ask Ty. Ty tell you how number 4. Number 4, because I only have 4 fingers. I forgot, and I actually had the 5th. So remember Sabbath day, keep it holy. All right, then. That's all I got. If you have any questions or anything, let me know. I'm gonna upload this to the YouTube channel. If you know people that don't, like this, share this. It really makes it go exponentially in the numbers of people who have opportunity to watch it if they wanted to. But that's what we're going to be looking at. I'll try to do it Thursday. I'll start shooting for more like 12:10. Why do you count the 10 commandments with your fingers? I think you know. Because I covet people who have 10 toes. We won't get into that. Joe, surely you can't remember that. Was that just coincidental? I don't know. Joe is the funniest person I know. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that. All right, then. Like this, share this. If you happen to go to find the YouTube channel, you can like it, and you can subscribe to it, and you can put a little bell that'll tell you how to be reminded of when it comes up. And we're going to try to do more things with videos and stuff. So there's so many. I know. I'm working on just being positive, Joe. So thank you. All right, then. Y'all have. See, I told you. All right. God bless. Find you a good church. Hey, this Sunday is our 78th anniversary at 2nd Street. Chip McCauley from Lake Tillery Presbyterian Church is going to be preaching. And we got special music we're doing. And we're going to have a covered dish meal afterwards. If you're in the area, join us. Should be a lot of fun. And we'll learn about more things about God and about each other. And maybe there'll be some things you can't unsee. All right. Thank you very much. God bless.